Hello and welcome to Bucky's Beginner Guides for Asker. I'm this Muppet and today we're going over the workshop. The workshop is a crucial part of your village infrastructure and allows you to automate the crafting of tools, weapons, shields, armor, bags, Yule tree decorations, and of course my absolute favourite item in the game, and people wonder why it takes me so long to do an episode. The workshop is also the first building in this guide series that can be both extended beyond its original footprint and specialized towards a particular type of finished good. As such, it is a very powerful, very versatile, but often complicated building with a lot of nuance, so let's take a look, shall we? Located in the Advanced tab of your building menu, the workshop comes in 3 tiers: the pit, the hut, and the house. The workshop pit is the most basic version of this building and is unlocked after you've built a woodcutter's pit, a stonecutter's pit, and a gatherer's pit, which we covered in the first 3 episodes of this guide series, so you should be familiar with them. In turn, building the workshop pit unlocks the woodcutter's hut, the stonecutter's hut, and the gatherer's hut, which means this building is the gateway to tier 2 of your journey through Asker. Now, the first thing you're going to notice when building the workshop is that there are these green or red areas sticking out from the left and the right sides. Those squares indicate roughly whether or not there's enough room for you to eventually build the various extensions. Green means you're good, probably, and red means there's something in the way, either uneven terrain, rock formations, or a pesky carrot. If both the squares on one side of the footprint are green, then you're probably going to be able to safely build the large extensions, those being the leatherworker and the carpenter. If the inner square is green but the outer square is red, then there won't be enough room for the larger extension, but you're probably still safe to at least build the smaller extensions, those being the weaver and the metalworker. I say probably though because the number of times I've built a workshop where the extensions were green only to then be blocked by them suddenly turning red when I go to build them is like 2 whole times. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it was really annoying both times. Finally, if both squares are red and you still place down the workshop, then you're a smoker in disguise. Or maybe you're making a cute little crafting corner. The second thing you want to keep in mind when placing the workshop is the negative effect it will have on any nearby housing, and I didn't mention this effect in either the woodcutter or the stonecutter guide, as you do tend to move those around a bit as the nearby wood and stone resources run out, but the workshop is a bit more of a long-term commitment, especially when you factor in any extensions you've built. That's not to say you can't move it, you totally can, it's just a royal pain in the arse to do so. So personally, I like to make little specialized industrial districts with supporting storages and production buildings to help both with logistics and aesthetics. But if you want to build a nightmare land where your cottages are right next to a workshop and a coal maker, you totally can, because that's the beauty of Asker. There's no wrong way to play, except that way. Once built, you can assign a single Kyle to the workshop pit who will then go about their day doing absolutely nothing, because unlike gathering jobs which automatically have tasks assigned, your workshop workers will only perform production tasks that you have set up for them. So let's give Kyle here something to do, shall we? To set production tasks and limits, go ahead and open the task menu and then you'll see 3 categories of goods: materials, tools, and weapons. Starting with materials, these are just tasks to make either 1 or 5 lengths of rope, as well as 1 or 5 stone blades. Right off the bat, the stone blade task is completely useless, so ignore that one. And as for rope, it can be useful to set a task for this, but my advice to you would be to have this task as the lowest priority. Reason being, you do not need to set tasks for rope or stone blades for your crafters to produce stone tools. Kyle is somehow smart enough to craft rope and stone blades himself before working on the finished good that requires them. Good job, Kyle. You're learning every day. Then under tools, you have a whole bunch of new recipes. The most important ones, of course, being your large stone axe and pickaxe. You are definitely going to want to set these tasks as a high priority. I tend to put the pickaxe first, but follow your heart. Wooden rakes, for whatever reason, are used in farming and unlock after you've built a farm. And I truly cannot recall what the road maker is used for. Maybe a smoker club or something. As for the smoker horn, we'll discuss that in the Eye of Odin and Militia episode. Then finally, under the weapons tab, there are again a few new craftables such as the two-handed club, flimsy bow, and wooden arrows. Do not make the bow or wooden arrows though, they are literal dog water. Just wait for the workshop hut and make the better ones. And that's the crafting pit in a nutshell. As for my starting production list, I tend to find that you can't really go wrong with the following. 2 large stone pickaxes so that your stone cutters can harvest the larger stone clumps. 2 large stone axes so that your woodcutters can harvest logs. 2 rakes for the farmers once unlocked. 1 fishing rod because I always settle near a lake and beeline the fishing hut. 1 stone knife for harvesting said fish along with any wildlife or whites. 1 spike club for defense, this is what I go with because I prefer it, and then a heavy club for any warriors that prefer it. And finally, again, if everything else is crafted, which it usually never is, a bunch of rope here at the bottom. I don't usually set tasks for wooden hammers or hoes at the workshop pit because new villagers arrive with both of these in their inventories, so if you just get into the habit of stealing theirs before assigning them to a job, you'll easily maintain a healthy surplus. I will, however, start adding these tasks once we've upgraded to the workshop hut. And speaking of the workshop hut, to upgrade your workshop pit into the hut version, you're first going to have to upgrade your woodcutter's pit and stonecutter's pit into their hut versions, which will require that you or your woodcutters begin harvesting logs using the previously mentioned large stone axe. Once built, the workshop hut allows up to 3 Kyles to work here and also doubles the shelf storage capacity from 10 to 20, which does allow you to set that greater number of tasks. The best part about upgrading to the workshop hut though is that it unlocks the ability to build those extensions I mentioned earlier, as well as unlocking a whole slate of new recipes. Now, there are 2 things to note about these new recipes. The first being that the order of them truly sucks and makes no human sense. I mean, honestly, why aren't they separated into types and ordered by tier? The second thing you'll notice is that many of these recipes are grayed out and cannot be crafted until a certain requirement has been met. To see these requirements, just click on any item and read the red text here. They mainly boil down to needing a certain combination of extensions built first. Now, before I go over the workshop extensions, I do first want to quickly go over the workshop house. So, to upgrade your workshop hut into a workshop house requires that you first build a carpenter, as this is where the required wooden shafts, posts, beams, and planks come from, and nails obviously from the metalworker. Once up and running, the workshop house unlocks additional storage as well as 3 new work slots, making for a grand total of 6 work slots, and good god, that is a lot of Kyles using sharp objects. Maybe we should build a healer's hut nearby. The workshop house also unlocks the ability for you to upgrade your extensions from the basic version to the much better, much prettier, improved versions. However, the best part about the workshop house is that it unlocks explosive sacks. I mean, come on, that's the only reason I build these things. Okay, so now let's talk about these extensions, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I rewrote this part of the script about half a dozen times because I could not for the life of me settle on whether I wanted to explain everything about the extensions in this episode or do them in a separate episode. So because I want these beginner guides to be under a certain length and also just not complete information overload for you, what I've settled on is I'm going to give a brief overview of each extension now, as well as offer my best tips and tricks for them, but then I'll make a dedicated guide for each extension as part of its specific production chain in another episode. I feel like that way we stay true to explaining the workshop in this guide, and then I can dive into the weeds and really hash out how to use them as part of your larger village-wide production chain in another video. So with that said, and even more of my runtime lost, let's talk extensions. Briefly. Workshop extensions are built using the upgrade tab in the main workshop menu, and there are 5 extensions in total. The Weaver unlocks slightly better clothing as well as the heavy linen armor for your villagers. Inside this extension, you'll be able to use the loom to craft both the linen and the thread needed to create these new armor pieces. Although you should know that the really fancy armor production has been moved to the new armorer building. We'll do that in another guide. The leather worker unlocks the ability to cure leather hides by hanging them on these nifty racks. The metal worker is used to craft your basic crude iron tools and weapons, those being your one-handed versions. The furnace here is fueled with coal from your coal maker and is used for heating up the iron blooms that come from your bloomery. This iron bloom is then used in various quantities at the anvil and shaped into the various iron tool parts. Finally, after shaping your iron parts, you will need to quench them in the water here before assembling them at the actual workshop workbench. Quick tip, either build a well or a rain collector nearby to allow your metal workers an easier time refilling their water trough. The carpenter comes with two unique stations called the Buck and the Horse. The Buck requires an iron axe to use and allows your carpenter to refine hardwood long sticks into wooden shafts and hardwood logs into wooden planks. The Horse requires an iron draw knife to use and allows your carpenter to refine hardwood long sticks into wooden beams and hardwood logs into wooden planks. Note, you cannot use regular logs or long sticks at the carpenter, which I feel is a bit of a missed opportunity for building diversity, but that's just me. And finally, the dyer unlocks the first bunch of dyes for crafting, which can be used to give your clothing, armor, or tier 3 buildings a splash of color. Please note that although the weaver, the leather worker, and the dyer are unlocked upon building the workshop hut, in order to build the carpenter, you'll first need to have built the metal worker, and in order to build the metal worker, you must first have built the bloomery, and in order to build the bloomery, you must first have built the coal maker. It is a little railroady, yes, but it essentially ensures that you have your iron production chain set up properly. Another thing to know right off the bat is that a workshop can only have a maximum of 2 extensions, one on each side, so in order to build all 5, you will need at least 3 workshops. I would definitely recommend that when starting off, you pair your tailor with the leather worker since their finished goods share resources. For this same reason, I would also recommend you pair your metal worker with your carpenter. But again, the beauty of Asker is that you can play any way you want. If you want to pair your metal worker with your dyer and your carpenter with your leather worker, then you can absolutely do that. There is no wrong way to play. No, I'm serious this time. There's no wrong way. Then later in the game, I definitely would encourage you to build a more specialized workshop by using 2 of the same extensions and a specialized task list, but we're going to cover that in the production chains guides. Once built, all improved extensions come with additional storage and durability and some additional recipes such as the ability to tan the heavy bear hide at the leather worker or unlocking 2-handed weapons as well as the tinker mechanic at the metal worker. And then improving the dyer also unlocks the last few dye recipes. The outlier here is the carpenter, as that does not get any new tasks, but the increased storage and worker slots more than make up for this. And that's it really as far as the workshop building. Again, there will be separate guides going into each of the individual extensions as part of the larger production chain they are part of, so check out those guides for a much deeper dive. For now, let's go ahead and talk about my favorite tips and tricks as well as what perks to look out for. Regarding workshop tasks, and this is really quite important because it trips a lot of newcomers up, workshop tasks are performed in order from top to bottom. In addition to this, the quantity you set for those higher tasks must be met before your crafters move on to the next one. Now that last part is the important part because the task limits you set for your workshops are only for items stored at that particular workshop. There is no village-wide production limit in the game. So you could have 500 iron shovels in warehouses all around your village, but if Kyle here has been told to make one and there isn't one on his shelf, then congratulations, you're getting shovel number 501. So rather than seeing those task numbers as how many you want to have, reframe it in your head as how many do you want to have on the shelf of this particular workshop, because the second an item is taken off that shelf, Kyle will make another and another and another, and that's how you wind up with 502 shovels. This is why I sort of always harp on about disabling and then redoing storage limits and priorities whenever you build a new warehouse, because they always default to wanting to store the maximum amount of each item, which is just bad design, to be honest, and why so many people wind up with 503 shovels. And I'm sure we're going to touch on the task limits and priorities when we get to the warehouse episode, yay! When it comes to perks, there's really only one standout workshop perk, and that is the craftsman perk, as villagers with this come with increased crafting proficiency, which does allow them to level their crafting skill much more quickly. And this is an important skill to level as fast as you can on at least one villager, because some recipes like the heavier armor only unlock when at least one person in your village has reached a certain crafting skill. One thing to note though is that the craftsman perk and the crafting skill as a whole offers no real benefits to metalworkers or carpenters, as villagers assigned to these roles instead begin leveling blacksmithing or carpentry respectively. And in the case of anyone using the tinkerer's station, the shamanism skill was increased. Night Shadow is worth having on at least one of your crafters, because villagers with this perk do not mind working the night, allowing you to keep the workshop running 24 hours a day. If you're unsure about what to do with any villagers that have negative perks such as chill sensitive, you could always just assign them to some part of your metal production chain, because then that way they'll always be working near a forge and can keep nice and warm. And finally, to level yours or your village's blacksmithing skill as fast as humanly possible, go ahead and build the Fire runestone and assign a shaman to it. The buff that they give out will increase everyone's blacksmithing proficiency to 3 stars, allowing you or your villagers to level much more quickly. And that's it for this beginner's guide. Be sure to check out my other guides or come and join me in whatever shenanigans I'm currently up to by clicking on one of the videos you see on screen now. Thank you so much for watching, and if you feel like you've learned something or you've enjoyed your time here, then please consider grabbing a sub, dropping a like or leaving a comment, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.